The press is the new piñata. Just about everybody running in the 2016 campaign lining up to take a few whacks. And I understand why that is. Media not very popular these days. Candidates get frustrated with their coverage. They can score some points by going after the big bad media. Sometimes it kind of comes off as whining, but especially in a Republican primary, I don't think anybody is going to object too loudly. And so we have this confluence of events. Marco Rubio going after the New York Times. First, it was on that ridiculous story about his 4 traffic tickets in 17 years. Then it was on a slightly more serious, but I thought condescending piece about his personal finances and whether he had a luxury speedboat, which he says is a family fishing boat. Now the New York Times runs a piece saying that Marco Rubio is not very popular in Cuba. That's not exactly a lightning flash because, after all, Rubio, the Florida senator, is perhaps the most high-profile opponent of what the Obama administration is doing in normalizing relations with Cuba. Of course, the Cuban government is trying to make him look bad, but I thought the story was fair because the Times reporter interviewed Rubio, who got to make his points and talk about Cuban government propaganda by the Castro regime. Maybe it's just a reflexive thing at this point. Chris Christie, when he was interviewed on Fox and on MSNBC's Morning Joe, going after what he calls the liberal media over the Bridgegate scandal. And now the Bridgegate scandal was a legitimate story at first, and after all, 3 of the New Jersey governor's aides and appointees have been indicted in that political payback scheme. But it is true that some media outlets, he mentioned the New York Times and MSNBC, went overboard in just pumping that story again and again and again. And when it turns out that it's true, that Christie was telling the truth, that there is no evidence that he knew in advance about this bridge traffic scheme, the press just moves on and says, well, he created the atmosphere that allowed this to go on. I don't think that's Christie's only problem in this campaign. I think his low poll numbers, especially in New Jersey, are a bigger issue. And so you go down the list. Donald Trump told me in the interview that we aired on Sunday that he likes punching back against the media. He does that. He calls out journalists by name. He calls them losers and clowns and idiots and worse. And Ted Cruz, in my interview with him for Mediabuzz, talked about how, in his view, journalists portray Republicans as either being stupid or evil, or in his case, crazy. Now, the contrast with Hillary Clinton, who, had that terrible image over the weekend where her aides were lassoing reporters and trying to keep them moving with that moving rope line, a July 4th parade up in New Hampshire, she now recognizes, or her campaign recognizes, that it's done a lot of damage to itself. It's taken some hits by keeping the press at arm's length. And so now I am told by her communications director that Hillary Clinton will start doing national television interviews. You know the one person who is giving a lot of interviews and is not whining about the press at all? That's Jeb Bush. He's given something like 39 interviews since February. And I think he has diffused the issue. He doesn't complain about the coverage. Nobody complains about the media access. He takes questions from reporters virtually every day that he's out on the trail. That's kind of the way it should be done, because you can complain and complain and complain about bad media coverage, and sometimes those complaints are warranted. But in the end, a successful political candidate has to punch through that. You can fight back, but has to get his or her message out. And just saying the press is so unfair to me, that in the end doesn't cut it.